Salutated Skibbledy. So turn to this page in your packet. You won't see this stuff written yet, um, but you will see the 5 bold words at the top and the 3 boxes. It's like on the back of the second page in your packet. Okay. So these 5 words along the top, we're going to talk about how they function. They all function pretty similarly. They're going to show up in 3 different types of sentence structures. So these are all really good head verbs. Audio, to hear; skio, to know; intelligo, to understand; video, to see; and sentio, to feel or to sense. So the first type of sentence structure we're going to talk about is indirect question, which we haven't talked about since last year. So this will be a nice review for us. So there are 3 parts to an indirect question, just like there are 3 parts to an indirect statement, but they're different pieces. So here I have them listed at the top. We want to start with a head verb, and like I said, that's where these 5 will come in. These are great head verbs. And then you have an interrogative word, like who, what, where, when, why. We're asking something with these words. And then we're going to have a subjunctive verb, which means they're going to be weird looking verbs. I sort of skipped the subjunctive a little bit, and we are actually functioning just as well without having formal subjunctive instruction as students do with it. So we're going to see how we are able to continue without doing this, or when I need to put it in. Okay, so don't be scared of subjunctive. It's just kind of different looking. So let's look at this example in your book. We have a nice simple example here because it just has the 3 pieces. There's no other nonsense in there. So audivi quid diceres. So we've got our head verb, which is I heard in our translation. Audivi is I heard. And then quid, there's our interrogative word or question word, and that's always asking what. So let's just switch that so you can see where everything is coming from and how the word order in Latin actually corresponds to the word order in English, which does not happen very often. So enjoy it while you can. What color do I want? Let's go. And then our verb, of course, gives us the most information out of anything else in the sentence. So first your head verb, I heard, and then your interrogative, what, and your final subjunctive verb, you were saying. So we know that S tells us you. The fact that we have this ERE here tells us were. And then the word dico dicere just means to say. So that's how we got to our verb translation. Nothing too crazy, nothing you haven't seen before. So an indirect question is not just a question, even though we use an interrogative word. Since we're using it in the middle of the sentence, we don't end with a question mark. So there is no question mark. Oops. Because you're not actually asking the question. It's this weird sort of reported question that usually you already know the answer to. So here's a little example with some more stuff. Notice we start with the head verb. Red on that one. The interrogative is cool, asking why. And then we have our verb. Look for verb endings and weird looking things. All right, cis is kind of a weird looking word. So let's translate this, shall we? Skio, I know. The interrogative, why? And this verb, cis, it looks weird and it's small and it's just kind of awkward, and you can assume this is a form of to be. So I know why. It's got an S on it, so it's still you. I know why you are in Latin. This seems kind of ominous. Kind of like I know what you did last summer, but it's not supposed to be. So I'm just highlighting the pieces so you can see the essential parts of this indirect question. There you go. Right, so that's what we're looking at. That sort of structure is something these 5 verbs can do, and they do it well. We're going to very quickly go over indirect statement because we spent the last chapter doing indirect statement, so we don't really need to do that as thoroughly. But watch, it'll probably take me another 5 minutes to do that. So here we have a head verb. That's how we're starting again. And then we have that subject accusative, where it functions as the accusative of the head verb, the subject of the verb in the second clause. And the verb in the second clause is an infinitive. Okay, so these are the 3 pieces we are talking about for an indirect question, or indirect statement. So indirect statement, we have a reported statement. So let's get the example from the book. Let's see. Okay. So, let's see what this amounts to. Audio, I hear. There's our head verb. And feel free to put that in. Once you know you're dealing with an indirect statement, after the head verb, you can put that. I hear that. The slaves. So you can think of it that you are hearing the slaves, so that's the accusative of hear, but then the slaves become the subject of the following verb, that the slaves prepare dinner. So notice that slaves becomes the subject of prepare. So it has that dual function, and that explains the double name, subject accusative. Okay? So if we were to just show you here, the head verb in red, the subject accusative in blue, and let's say this is the whole subject accusative translation. Once you know you're dealing with that indirect statement, like I said, you can put that in there. It just kind of clears things up, makes it flow nicer in English. There is no word for that, of course, in Latin, however. So I'm highlighting only the essential pieces. Dinner is an extra bit of information. It's not an essential piece of an indirect statement. So that's something you can use these top words for. Okay, these are all good head verbs. Again, hearing, knowing, understanding, seeing, and feeling. All right. This is a review from the very first year of Latin. All right, these verbs are perfectly suitable for just normal use. So a verb plus an accusative, where you have a subject, verb, direct object. If we're speaking in English terms, of course. So let's look at what the book gave us. Okay. So this is going to have technically only necessary to have 2 pieces in the Latin. So your verb, which includes a subject in Latin, not in English. You need to supply it in English as an additional thing. And an accusative, some sort of direct object. It's as simple as that. It is exactly what the name would suggest here at the top. So that means we're ready to look at this example. So we're going to start with audio again. And then you can pair it with pretty much whatever accusative you want. We've got I hear for that verb. And like we said in Latin, the verb includes the subject on the end there with that O. So I hear the slaves. Simple subject, verb, direct object structure. So on your quiz, you're going to need to be able to pick these out. So I'm going to give you a sentence using audio scio, intellego, video, or senteo. And you're going to have to tell me which one of the three I'm looking at. Indirect question, indirect statement, or just the normal use verb plus accusative. All right, so be prepared for that. Ask me any questions you may have, either in some downtime today or the next time we see each other, probably tomorrow.